Welcome, one and all, to Tastefully Nerd Sports, the show where we talk about the sporty side of nerds and the nerdy side of sports. They call me Green, they call him Gonzo, and we call this episode Mayhem and Magic. Game on. Our first big topic tonight, the brawl to end it all. All is the Steelers and Browns seasons, that is. Gonzo, you saw this in real time, more or less. What is your take on it?
In real time, immediately I thought it was, in my experience in football, it's more than likely the person who throws their hands up, it was probably their fault. And I saw Mason Rudolph do that. So that's what I initially expect. But after looking at it, there's a whole lot of, angles to it. Initially, Myles Garrett is wrong for taking the play as far as he did. He hit him before he saw the ball get released, and ended up taking him to the ground much longer after the ball was out. Mason Rudolph gets mad. They come to blows, and then helmets get taken off, and he hits him over the head with a helmet. That was basically the story.
Yeah, I actually I didn't catch it till the following day. Everyone's like, "You gotta check out this fight, dude! Steelers and Browns. It looks like it's gonna be the new Steelers Bengals."
Oh yeah. It's one of the most one of the biggest fights I've seen in football. Either live or anything.
Yeah. So obviously there was a lot of hyperbole. At first, people were like, "Oh, if this is on the streets, that would be assault." Mm-hmm. And to be honest, they're right. If this was on the streets, Mason Rudolph could press charges. Yeah. Now, some people are like, it would be assault with a weapon. That really depends on how your jurisdiction, how they want to adjudicate that. Because sometimes, like if you use an improvised object, they won't call it assault with a weapon unless you somehow weaponize that object, like breaking a glass bottle to stab someone versus just clunking someone on the head with a glass bottle. Yeah. And I don't think anyone's going to say that football helmet was weaponized. Yeah. That being said, that was probably the most deliberate act of over the course of playtime violence I've seen.
Yeah. In all my years, I've never seen a person use a helmet as a weapon like that. At least like that. I've seen people throw helmets at each other, but never using as a striking, like hammering object like that.
No, exactly. So I'm kind of obvious. You said the first person threw their hands up, right? It was obvious. He threw his hands up after he had already been hit. Like it was clear. Like, where's the flags? Yeah. And a bunch of flags did come. Yeah. And then to make things worse, Larry Ogunjobi, the D lineman for the Browns, came and shoved him from behind, knocking him down, prolonging the brawl. Of course, after the first hit, several of Mason Rudolph's linemen let loose a battle cry. We had a real sample of it just now. That was the actual battle cry from Marquise Pouncey as he was punching and kicking the downed Myles Garrett.
In any situation like that, a lineman is going to strike and retaliate. I've hit people for the sake of my quarterback. I understand. It's an immediate response.
Yeah, you got to protect your dude. You got to protect your dude. I understand. Mm-hmm. So now, of course, Mason Rudolph, with retrospect, with hindsight, watching the fight again, you can see that he was ripping at Myles Garrett's helmet first.
Yes.
And he was. Now it's hard to see their mouth, but like you can pretty much assume that they're jawing at each other.
Of course.
And I don't know what Mason Rudolph's goal was, whether it was to rip off his helmet and strike a blow, or if he was just trying to hold Garrett to his face to get face-to-face words. I've seen players do that. I've seen them grab someone else's helmet and pull it to him in order to yell at his face or spit at him, which is another what's the word I'm looking for? Starts with an E. When he kicked out of a game.
Ejected.
Yeah. That's another ejectable offense. Mm-hmm.
Definitely getting
So I think that was probably the goal, wasn't to rip Garrett's helmet off. Certainly not to rip it off and hit him with it, but like...
Of course not, yeah. Like, I feel like that's just, you know, it comes after. All that came after the fact.
Yeah, you see frustrations boiling over. I mean, he had gotten the ball out already.
Yeah.
And it was... Myles Garrett should have had the situational awareness to know that the ball was out. There was no reason for him to bring Mason Rudolph to the ground, and Rudolph's head strikes pretty hard on the ground, and he's coming off of a concussion.
Yeah.
So I can understand him trying to get in Garrett's face as a sort of self-defense mechanism, perhaps. Yeah. And you might be like, why are we talking about this now? This is a week old at this point.
Yeah,
this
it
day.
is.
Well, because we ran out of time last week, but also there is some new breaking news.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us what that news is?
So the appeals have officially gone through for everyone involved in the incident. Some people's appeals were good. Some people's appeals were not.
Yep.
Marquise Pouncey went from 3 games to 2 games. His appeal got approved.
It was softened probably because it was again in defense of his quarterback.
Yep. Mason Rudolph got I believe it was like a $35,000 fine.
It has not been, well, as of recording this, it has not been confirmed that he has been fined, but he is probably going to be fined for his role in the altercation.
The first number I've seen was $35,000.
That probably makes sense, yeah.
Larry Ogunjobi got 1 game
suspension for shoving him from behind. Yep.
Myles Garrett got an indefinite suspension.
Yep. And he has to meet with the commissioner's office. So this was just the appeals hearing. This was not the meeting with the commissioner's office. He was representing the NFL was a gentleman named Thrash, which is the most appropriate name for someone representing the NFL.
Yeah, for a situation like this.
I'm trying to find the gentleman's first name, but apparently I did not take it in my notes. But Mr. Thrash said, I'm the one doing the thrashing here. Mm-hmm. You guys have to deal with your consequences. Now, the other big news from this appeals hearing, which apparently went on for over 2 hours, at least the Myles Garrett portion of it. I don't know Pouncey and Ogunjobi's. Myles Garrett portion went on for over 2 hours, and he started off with bringing up that he heard Mason Rudolph call him a racial slur. Yeah. They have not, to my knowledge, not printed what that slur was, although probably use your imagination, fill in the details.
Yeah, pretty easy.
Now, this is the first time anyone's heard of it. Like Myles Garrett, when he had the chance to defend his actions following the game, he did not say this. Yeah. When he issued his letter of apology, it did not mention that at all. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are saying like he came in here saying this to sort of curry sympathy. Yeah. Because previously, a player named Antonio Smith was suspended in 2013 for 2 preseason games and 1 regular season game for swinging his helmet at Richie Incognito, who
yes,
at the time O-line for the Miami Dolphins. Yes. I remember that being his story also. Mm-hmm. And he successfully got his suspension lowered by 1 game. But here's the thing. 1, he missed. Yeah. And 2, Richie Incognito already had a bad reputation in the league. Yep. And considering just, 2 years later was the whole...
Richie Incognito and...
not hazing gate, but you know what it's called. Bullygate. Yeah, the whole Bullygate thing where he was bullying the other O-lineman who did not last long in the league, unfortunately for him. I mean, they found all sorts of text messages and documents showing him using racial slurs. Mm-hmm. So everyone could buy that. Yeah. But with this one, since Mason Rudolph has also come forward and apologized for his role in the brawl, he apologized for kicking the thing off in the first place by reacting the way he did. And again, there was no defense, or there was no one accusing him, rather, of using offensive language prior to this. it kind of is coming off like maybe Garrett's doing this to lie. Because now Odell Beckham Jr. Believes Garrett. He's like, I don't see any reason why he would lie. My teammate would lie like that. I know, no one else has publicly come out in support of Garrett's way the events have unfolded. I know Mason Rudolph's lawyer has called it slander. He said that this is slander. This is just someone trying to reduce their suspension. This is probably just someone trying to ease their reputation. Because I wasn't aware of this initially, but Myles Garrett has, in the few years he's been in the league, has actually developed something of a dirty reputation already. Do you know anything about his previous infractions?
I knew about one from a few years ago, I believe. It was...
These are much farther this season.
I had heard about one, but I did not know of any others. But...
Yes, because I didn't know about any until this year. I found out. I remember this making the news. He punched Delaney Walker of the Tennessee Titans and was ejected from that game.
That was it.
And he was fined $10,000 for that. Mm-hmm. He also had not one but two roughing the passer penalties against the Jets, including the one that destroyed Luke Falk's ankle and took him out of that game. And again, this was another instance where he was roughing the passer that started this whole thing. So he's already kind of gotten a reputation of someone who doesn't care if he hurts the other team's player and who's willing to enact physical violence outside of football plays when he's upset. So I think that is kind of what shot his racial epithet defense in the foot.
Yeah, he's already, had these things follow him. So, now is just kind of a boiling over point.
Yeah. Well, the real losers from this all are the Browns and Steelers because they ain't making the playoffs.
Definitely the Browns. Myles Garrett could have helped them, actually pull together.
Oh yeah, but I think they're done for this season.
Yep. As do I.
Yeah. And I don't. Now that it's only 3 games except 2 for Pouncey, who has been in the past a Pro Bowl caliber center. Maybe they're still in it, but honestly, Rudolph just hasn't shown that he's got what it takes yet.
No, he doesn't have a playoff push. I don't believe so.
Yeah, and especially not down your starting center for 2 more games.
No.
In the very competitive, and actually it's not very competitive. NFC North is kind of a joke this year, but they're not. The wild card race is very competitive. It's a very competitive wild card race, and there's no way they're catching the Ravens at this point. The Ravens look
the Ravens
unstoppable.
I believe the Ravens are shoo-in for the AFC championship.
Yeah, I agree because they're almost assuredly at this point. If they continue playing, barring some sort of catastrophe, they're almost assured a first-round bye. They need one victory to get to the AFC championship. They are my AFC favorites to represent them in the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, I honestly like their odds even better than the Patriots and the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, if the Patriots won't get there because I don't believe their offense will.
No, it's not hanging up its end of the bargain. They really needed Gronk to announce he's coming out of retirement, not that he was going to throw a crazy Super Bowl party. Because as we've now seen, Edelman as their star playmaker alone is not enough.
No, he is not. But I want to go to that Gronk Super Bowl.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they have a 9-1 record. They have an amazing record, but their games have been close and they've been largely against bad teams.
Yes. When they face good teams, they're not spectacular. They're just average.
Yeah. So, there you go. You got our thoughts and updates on the brawl and a little bit of AFC championship game speculation for you. It's a good bang for your buck. Well, I'll tell you who's not my shoe-in for any sort of NFC contention. And, I gotta take my lumps. The Arizona Cardinals, we are not in contention. I think we, as of our loss last week, are now mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. But you know who was mathematically eliminated from the playoffs even earlier?
Long before.
The Redskins.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Womp 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 womp. Anything you're looking forward to in their game this weekend?
Not too much. They play the Detroit Lions. They, even without a injured Matthew Stafford, they still can do pretty well.
They hung tough. The Cowboys through 3 quarters before the Cowboys pulled away.
I don't know. It just looks like a dumpster fire up in DC. After seeing the video of Dwayne Haskins pleading to the O-line, what can I do to help you, to help me? It's not a good sign from any O-line quarterback perspective. Even if it wasn't, any kind of, like, a lot of people have been speculating some kind of, overall maliciousness and, like, giving up. Even still, just that question alone is just kind of, just shows bad things.
Yeah, it shows that they're not on the same page. Not on the same page at all.
So, yeah, and then, it's a lot of rumors and confirmation that the tickets to a Redskins game right now are $5.
Yeah,
$5.
You can go and get secondhand tickets. I mean, not great quality tickets, but you can go get secondhand tickets to the Redskins for $5 whole bucks.
Yeah, they got to fill up those stands because not many people want to go.
No, I was watching. I came to work towards the trail end of the Jets Redskins game, and you could just see in the stands they were at least half empty, which is unheard of for a football team, an NFL football team.
Yeah, it's looked like a preseason game or something out there.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was like preseason level, except without the excitement for future things to come that the preseason brings.
Exactly, it's bad, but yeah, that's about it for the Washington Redskins. I mean, hopefully they can find some way to salvage the rest of the season and, give Dwayne Haskins some looks and, build towards something new, and hopefully next year it looks better. I mean, can't really look much worse.
I hope so too. Actually, I don't care about their team. Sorry.
I respect that.
As someone who moved to the DC area late into halfway through high school, so my formative years, like I've established before, were largely out in the Southwest, primarily Arizona, but a little bit in California, a little bit not living but visiting Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado. Lived in Seattle for a little bit.
Yep.
So that's kind of my wheelhouse, even though I've been out here for now longer than a year at a time. And since I've been out here, I have largely adopted the local DC teams as sort of my secondary or third choice teams. Like I actually for a while rooted for the Capitals more than the Coyotes. It's now that the Caps have their Stanley Cup, I've sort of switched back to rooting for the Coyotes more.
Oh, yeah.
When the Phoenix Suns we're better, but like we had 8 years without making the playoffs. I was cheering on the Wizards, who made the playoffs 4 years in a row. It looked like things were trending up for them, and then an Achilles tear later, and some really bad cap management. Now they're in the doldrums. But Wizards were kind of like my East Coast team of choice.
Yeah.
Before I started rooting for the Raptors, just because I like Canadian teams in U.S. sports. It's funny to me. The Nationals, they'll never be like my true number 2 team, just because they're an NL team, and I've been a Diamondbacks fan largely since their inception.
Yeah.
So I can't unabashedly root for them. But playoff time comes when the Nats are in the playoffs. I absolutely rooted for them, and I always wanted to see them do well. I didn't want to see them do bad. I just didn't want to see them do better than the Diamondbacks, which they usually did.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't really. I don't watch a ton of WNBA. I like to tune in for the playoffs. I do like to root on the Mercury, but I streamed for the Mystics this year as well.
Yep.
The Redskins were the only DC area team I just gave no craps about. And
rightfully so.
I think that's due to the fact that like the entire time I've been here, they've been pretty much bad, and also they used to be division rivals for the Cardinals. So I think that kind of, just those are two strikes against them.
Yeah, you just can't go back from that.
And I am one of those people who does think their name is. I don't think it's deliberately offensive, but I think it's kind of offensive.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Redskins apologist.
Yeah, could use a little bit of love there.
I've always said that So we have the Capitals and the Nationals, who both have sort of themed names around this being the capital and nation's capital. Mm-hmm. And I figured we have the Wizards, who used to be the Bullets, which is considered a problematic name. Mm-hmm. So the other formerly problematic name, is the Redskins. So I think they should change their name to the Warriors. That way you can have Wizards and Warriors. And we'd have the most D&D sounding sports team collection in any one
Warriors,
city.
Nationalists.
I don't think
Nationals. Sorry.
Nationals isn't really.
No, it doesn't really go.
Nationals, but it's like pairs of twos.
Then we also have the Mystics.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. So like the Nationals and the Capitals are like a nice pair. They're a pair.
Yeah.
And then the Wizards.
They're barbarian pair.
Yeah, the Wizards and the Warriors. They're like a nice pair. And then the Mystics kind of glue it all together.
Yeah, it's like a druid.
The mysticism of the power structure of our capital, but the mysticism of magic. So yeah, that's missed the segue there.
Yeah.
I was saying, like, speaking of magic, that's my topic, but we're not actually done with the local flavor yet. So I'll cop to organizing that in the wrong order. Cardinals are on bye. So, not really looking forward to anything from them this weekend. No. People get rested healthy. But at the top of the start of the hockey season, I had mentioned that the Coyotes had been in the wild card contention for the last 2 seasons, and were kind of like considered a sneaker pick for making the playoffs. Sleeper pick for making the playoffs this year. Well, they've definitely caused people to wake up. As of right now, they're 13-7-2 with 28 points, which is second in the Pacific Division, which is generally considered right now to be the hardest division in hockey and the NHL. They've won 4 of the last 5 games, including a game against the Capitals, and they have 2.23 goals against them per game, which is fewest in NHL. Now, what kept them in contention the last 2 years was their defense. They had excellent defense. A lot of teams in the desert tended to have good defense for a while. Mm-hmm. This year, especially with the trade for Kessel, they are scoring also. So, look pretty good. The Suns had come out guns blazing. They've now cooled off a bit. They've dropped 2 in a row for the first time all season. To the very good Celtics team and to a mediocre Sacramento team that the Suns themselves blew out by almost 30 points to start the season. Because teams
came back with a vengeance, that happens.
Yeah, I mean we at least stormed back in the fourth quarter, made it a close game.
Yeah.
But I have said that this might be the first season Devin Booker becomes an all-star, and he probably will be, but he might end up as a coach's decision, coach's pick. Mm-hmm. But if he wants to be, a first ballot, actually voted in popular vote all-star, he needs to figure out how to contribute to the game when defenses are locked onto him. Because the Celtics and to a lesser degree the Kings were largely shutting him down through most of those games. And unfortunately, with DeAndre Ayton out, Aaron Baines has been playing spectacular, but he's kind of gone back to league average since then. Mm-hmm. And that means really most of our offense is flowing through Devin Booker. And so he's got to figure out a way to either just score regardless of who's defending him or getting the rest of the squad more involved. But yeah, that's it for the local flavor. I'll go ahead and discuss some Magic the Gathering in a little bit here. Hold on tight. While we take a little break from the action, if you guys would like to support the show, obviously liking, commenting, and subscribing would really help. Please let us know if you like the new format. 2 episodes a week. One as a reaction to the previous week's stories, and one as a preview for the upcoming week's festivities. You can also purchase trading cards if you're into trading card games from the tcgplayer.com store that Tastefully Nerd runs. You can find us, search for Tastefully Nerd. Speaking of trading card games and awkward segues, my next segment I'm going to talk about Magic the Gathering, one of my all-time favorite hobby games to play. And it's also the topic of this week's question. Back in 1994, Wizards of the Coast had released the first banned and restricted list for competitive play in Magic the Gathering. Can you name 3 of the 5 cards from the very first ban list in the comments? The first person to do so will get a special shout out in our next episode. A lot of these banned cards are not necessarily ones you'd think of if you're familiar with the game. You'll also get an extra special shout out if you can name a common thread linking 4 of the 5 cards. On with the show. As I alluded to in my earlier failed opportunity at a convincing segue, I will be talking about Magic the Gathering as my big story for this episode. Earlier in November, I was able to attend Magic Fest Richmond, which is a hybrid pro Magic player tournament and general audience Magic fan convention. I went with a good friend of the show, Berto. It was a lot of fun. For the most part, with a few caveats. Actually, a lot of caveats. We went on Thursday because it was the only day we were free in our schedules, and Thursday was also the world premiere of the Magic the Gathering Mystery Booster format, a new format that they had only recently announced. That speculation was it was going to be tied into the other new format they had recently announced called Pioneer, and these were going to be somehow connected. They weren't. Not that that was a deal breaker or anything, although I was kind of looking forward to what would affectionately be dubbed Pioneer Masters for those in the know. But it ended up being essentially Chaos Draft the format. Chaos Draft in Magic the Gathering, if you don't know, is when you take several different packs of Magic cards that are not designed to be played together. So they don't really have overarching themes or goals or mechanics. And then you draft them like they would anyway, and you do your best to make a deck that works. This was essentially a curated list of 1,000 Magic cards from throughout Magic's history, thrown together in one jalopy of a set. I guess design and development had spent a long time fine-tuning this, but to me and most people there, it just looked like a random mess of cards. Some high-value, very interesting cards, mostly unplayable jank that was not worth the money it cost. Speaking of not worth the cost, I went on Thursday, as I said, and Thursday the entry fee ended up being $75, which was way too high, but it's because it was a double-up event, which means if you won prize tickets, which were used to redeem prizes after the event, you got double the prize tickets. Well, unfortunately, I lost all 3 matches for the first and hopefully only time in a Magic the Gathering event, so I got 0 prize tickets. And if you double up 0, you still get 0. So absolutely not worth the cost of admission for the double up event. If I had gone for a regular event, I may have liked it more. But this is also clearly a format designed for drafting, which is where you open a pack of Magic cards, you pick a card, you pass it to someone else, and then they pass a pack to you and you pick it, so on and so forth, and then you have a little bit of control over what you end up with in your deck. Unfortunately, like most release events, this was a sealed event, which means you got 6 booster packs, you open them up and you just had to use whatever you lucked into to make your deck. Needless to say, I did not have great luck. I didn't luck into particularly powerful cards, and I didn't luck into any real synergy because Chaos Drafts are not known for synergy. And even though they had the chance to curate this for synergy, it did not appear to, at least through sealed, like they did. So my deck was kind of janky. The big unique twist to the convention versions of the Mystery Boosters, and this is only the versions of Mystery Boosters you can buy at conventions, which is a big missed opportunity, because they will eventually sell Mystery Boosters through local game stores, but they will not include the big gimmick, and that was playtest cards. In each pack, you were guaranteed at least one. I think you only got one. Playtest card, which was a card that was mocked up to look like the rough, unfinished cards that they use when they playtest sets in design. And they had some pretty crazy cool abilities. They were not balanced for competitive play at all, but it was still fun to see a lot of these. Unfortunately, a lot of them appear to be references to previous playtest ideas they had made public via different design columns and documents. So some of the surprise wasn't really there. A lot of them, according to some of the staff, most of them were made up for this event, and they were just having fun with it. The head of Magic Mystery Booster was Gavin Verhey from Magic's design team. He was there along with Melissa DeToro from their play design team. So I know them from their articles they write and the various YouTuber videos they cameo on. So it was cool. I didn't get to actually talk to them. I was kind of hoping to, but maybe next time. But yeah, I have to say, the mystery boosters, they seem like fun to draft, and there are some high value reprints in there, but man, it feels like a lottery ticket because I didn't get any of them, and it was not worth the money that I spent. Even before being a double up event, it would have been worth the normal admission, and it just is not a format for sealed because there's just not enough inherent synergy in the cards to make that enjoyable. So all in all, I didn't have a great time at Magic Fest this year. I also wasn't the only person to not have a great time at Magic Fest Richmond. I'm going to be using the Medium.com article by Evan Windsor called Why I'm Quitting Magic the Gathering for my primary source for the rest of this little segment, but there were some other issues with the event. Earlier, they had inducted Reed Duke, a famous by Magic the Gathering standards, Magic the Gathering Pro player, into the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. A very deserving entry. He's been a very talented player who's done a lot of outreach to the Magic the Gathering community, so props to him. He did, however, call out thanks to Owen Tutenwald, who was a player that I guess he had a great relationship with, but one that had been actually forced out of the Pro Tour circuit earlier for sexual harassment, harassing female attendees and other players. So, not a good look. Shouting out support to, and this is, Wizards' tacit bracing in a way of a suspected abuser. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning of the bit of controversy around Magic Fest Richmond. In addition to a lot of people other than myself having fairly negative reactions to the launching of the Mystery Booster format, product, whatever you like to call it, there was also issue around marked basic land cards. You see, for things like signatures or maybe simple messages, you're allowed to write on your cards so long as when they're in the sleeves, they don't in any way interfere with gameplay. Most commonly, basic lands, since everyone who plays Magic knows where they function, are the best topics or canvases for this. Well, Autumn Burchett is a trans woman who plays on the Magic Pro League, and she was in attendance. And she had written on her basic lands, trans rights are human rights, and no turfs on Gruul turf, in a way that did not infringe with the rules. But she was forced to replace those lands with unmarked basic lands. Not by the rules team, not by the judges in attendance, but by representatives from Wizards of the Coast themselves. Wizards of the Coast had won a lot of props for letting one of their Hong Kong Pro League players publicly support the Hong Kong the Hong Kong Civil Rights Movement. As, perhaps a direct response to Blizzard, of course, punishing Blitzchung for doing the same. So they had kind of garnered a bit of a reputation in the esports pro hobby sports industry for allowing free speech. But this pro-trans rights free speech that did not break the rules of the game was, for some reason, not allowed. One of the theories is because they were on art for Therese Nielsen, wonderful Magic the Gathering artist, one of my favorites. However, someone who I guess recently has kind of come under fire for potentially be sympathizing with the alt-right movement and with denouncing trans rights. Position the artist has since changed, at least publicly, and I hope that's the case because, again, I love her artwork. But there was definitely some pushback from what seemed to be a needless change, and only Autumn had to follow this. Not that other people were necessarily playing with marked cards or cards that had writing on it espousing political views, but the one trans member of the pro community had different rules subjected to her than the cisgendered players. And that's not a great look. It's not a good look. And this is coming hot off the heels of the third War of the Spark tie-in novel coming out, called War of the Spark. I forgot the subtitle. There it is. War of the Spark Forsaken. Now, one of the main characters in the Magic the Gathering storyline is a Planeswalker, which is a special type of magic user named Chandra. And Chandra had been established as being a bisexual. And they had been hinting at a relationship between her and another female Planeswalker named Nissa in some recent storylines. Even going so far as to imply that they were going to acknowledge in an official capacity their status as a couple in the third and final War of the Spark novel. Only for the novel to come out and the scene featuring the two characters involve them admitting that it was platonic love all along, and having Chandra specify that all of her crushes had been big, burly, manly men, and that Nissa was the exception, but that really the attraction was all surface level, and that their relationship was over before it truly began. In stark contrast to the way this character had been written for years at this point. So they have a trans woman have to change her pro-civil rights speech, and in the novel released only a few days later, they commit bi-erasure and erase the bisexual identity of one of their main characters. A lot of people think this might be a crass economic decision, since Chandra is likely to be a main character in the upcoming Netflix Magic the Gathering TV show, and because they want to market this in foreign countries, Netflix is heavily investing in China and India right now. So they suspect that by eliminating her bisexualness, they'll be able to sell that show, because those countries, especially China, have very strict censorship when it comes to non-heteronormative relationships. At best, that's crass commercialism, but honestly, it all seems really bad. Unlike the author of this the article I was using as my primary source, Evan Windsor, I am not quitting Magic the Gathering on the whole. Far from it. I'm actually practicing and preparing to launch a Magic the Gathering Arena Twitch streaming channel of my own. It'll diversify, but that's sort of the starting focal point. However, I'm not spending any money on the Magic the Gathering storyline products. The Russo brothers are making the Netflix show. I already have a Netflix subscription. I still plan on watching that, checking in on it, giving you guys feedback, but I'm not spending money on their storyline elements, especially not when they're doing... It's been really sloppy writing the last several novels, and I don't want to support them in that respects. Apparently this starts from when they hired Nick Kelman, an author, to help overhead their story department. And Nick Kelman himself is a bit of a shady personality. Well, not shady, it's not the right word, but a controversial personality. And that his first major novel, which was a bestseller that kind of propelled him into the spotlight, is called Girls, Payon. And it's largely centered around having sex with underage girls in Europe. where the age of consent is lower, and it's gross. It's gross. I haven't read the book, but I read passages from it in reviews, and it's gross. And I'm like, why did you hire a gross guy to lead this company, the story department, to rush out a trilogy of sort of poorly conceived and poorly executed novels to tie into the largest storyline event Magic the Gathering has ever done. Especially since there was a history of very strong, largely freely available writing in the universe telling the story from their website. So, until they get him out of here or they change their stance, I'm done with the storyline. I still like the game, still play the game. I still sell the cards at my TCG Player store, as I mentioned in the break. Tastefully Nerd. Yeah, that's my store name. But, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, it's time for the fan favorite segment, Fantasy Football.
Oh, yeah, baby.
We're going to start off with our game we play called Start, Sit, Swap, where you recommend a player that you start that you think will get over 15 ESPN PPR points. Then we recommend a player to sit who's projected to get over 10 points, but you don't think he's going to get there. And then we recommend a player to swap. They must be an eligible fantasy spot to swap in for the person you're sitting, and they're not projected for 10, but you think they're going to do it. You get 1 point for each projection, each start, sit, swap player who hits their goals, or fails to in the case of a sit. I currently lead 5 points to Gonzo's 3. Mm-hmm. Gonzo, this is your chance to get even with me. Who are you doing today?
I feel good about these picks this week. I feel real good. Okay, I'm gonna start Mark Ingram.
Okay.
Very solid start. He's been doing very well in his tandem with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And they are playing. Who is it?
They're playing the Rams.
The Rams. That's
whose defense has been solid but not spectacular.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go with them, and then to sit, I'm gonna sit Greg Olsen.
Okay.
He's been doing decently well, but this week
he's a good safety blanket for a quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, but this week they're playing the New Orleans Saints.
Yep,
and
Saints
the Saints
defense
is quite good.
It's been unreal, except for that one game they lost to Lilac.
And then to switch that out, I'm going to take the opposite side. I'm going to take Jared Cook over Greg Olsen and swap him out.
Okay. Cook's production hadn't been anywhere near what we were expecting it to be, but he has come on as of late with Drew Brees back.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely gonna spark up, and especially this game, I believe that he's gonna break out.
Now I want to mention something. So we're not allowed to pick the same player multiple times in one season. However, we are allowed to pick players the other person picked. I had picked Mark Ingram to be my start one week because he was projected just shy of 15. I'm like, oh, he's going to get that. He got 9. So let's see if he betrays you like he betrays me.
Yeah, we will see.
But all in all, solid picks. I'm going real conservative with my start. I'm going to start in Julio Jones, who is projected for 18. So again, it's a very conservative bet. Probably going to get at least 15. He's been on fire lately. The Falcons have been on fire the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, after a slow start.
Very slow start.
Yeah.
They've been getting some players healthy, and I think this pretty much signifies the end of the Dan Quinn era in the Falcons more than anything. Dan Quinn, who of course came up as the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks when they were Super Bowl contenders. Mm-hmm. And took over the Falcons job. And this, as of 2 weeks ago, he gave up play calling duties on the defense. And of course, he's a D coordinator. That's what he's famous for. His defenses in the past have been excellent. The Falcons' defense was abysmal this year.
Yeah.
The 2 games since he turned play calling duties over, they won both by commanding margins. So, oof.
Yep.
That being said, bonus start. Maybe the Falcons' defense. But
we could see them do well for one of the first times this season.
But after being pretty pedestrian through most of the season, Julio Jones, now that I guess the offense is able to get in a rhythm since the defense could let them stay on the field, they have he's come alive. I think he's hitting that. I'm going to sit John Brown.
Okay.
Who was of Buffalo Bills, who was a sleeper coming into the season. He had obviously done some excellent things with Arizona.
Yeah.
He did some solid work with Baltimore last year, but he had struggled with consistency. He had 2 excellent seasons with Arizona, had 2 mediocre ones. His Ravens season, yeah, exactly. His Ravens season was solid, but it was a mix of excellent and forgettable games. He has easily turned into the number 1 wide receiver at Buffalo. He has very good rapport with Josh Allen. But they are playing some pretty decently tough defense this week. They are... I think they're at Denver.
I believe so.
They're at Denver, yeah. And so Chris Harris Jr. is he's not playing like a lockdown cornerback he has been in the past this year, but he's still an above average cornerback. I think he's going to keep Brown in check. I think that pass rush is going to keep Allen busy. I think Allen still gets his points because the Denver defense has been soft against the run, and I think this is going to be a grinded out victory for the Bills.
Yep.
But I'm sitting John Brown, and I'm going to swap in instead Taylor Gabriel.
Okay.
Now, Taylor Gabriel he was very good with the Falcons. It came to Chicago and has largely underperformed, like most of Chicago's offense has. But, he still gets several targets a game. He's a pretty solid yard after catch guy. Mm-hmm. And they're playing the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to make a good amount of points against the Giants.
Yeah. He's projected for 9 ESPN PPR right now, but I personally always add 2 to the projection minimum when it comes to playing against the Giants this season.
Yeah. Certain teams you just gotta add that kind of projection.
Yep. Well, any games you're looking forward to this weekend from a fantasy football perspective?
Well, definitely. Honestly, both of the games in my lineup, the Ravens versus the Rams, that is going to shape up to be a great game, and then also the Panthers versus the Saints.
Panthers versus Saints.
Both of those are going to be very great games.
Yeah, I don't think that one's going to be. I think that's if the Saints play like they did last week, and the Panthers play like they played last week. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to be a good, multifaceted game. I think that's going to be the Saints just running over the Panthers.
I think the Panthers bounce back.
Okay. I mean, Kyle Allen's played really mediocre the last 2 games, but he played very solidly his first several. So I mean, we'll see.
Can show something against the Saints.
Yeah, I'm going to be a pretty blatant mainstream NFL fan for this week, and I'm going to say Packers 49ers.
Okay.
These are 2 defenses that are really good and 2 offenses that aren't high-powered, but they still get a lot of points.
Still produce exactly what they need. And, keep on producing if they need to.
This is potentially a battle for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Mm-hmm. This is the quarterback who has the NFL's best win percentage ever so far in Jimmy Garoppolo versus the quarterback who was, for a while, I don't think he is anymore, but was for the longest time the most accurate in NFL history. Drew Brees is taking that throne in Aaron Rodgers. So you've got stars behind center. You've got stars along the D-line. You've got a revamped secondary in Green Bay, which has been playing, for the most part, very well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a really good game. And I had mentioned at the top, I usually have like most sports fans, I kind of have a secondary team in most sports. And in the NFL, growing up, my secondary team was the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
I think just because my last name is Green, and I like the color green, and also they were good. And as someone who didn't watch a lot of football, but rooted kind of from a distance for the Cardinals, they didn't make the playoffs very often. So you had to have a team you like. Now,
I always had to root against the Packers for being the friend of a Vikings fan. So
there you go.
That was always
friend of the show, George.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I watched a lot of football with him growing up, and that was in the Randy Moss era, those early times when and me liking football, so I was always rooting with him. And whenever Green Bay came around, it was like, yeah, we gotta beat Green Bay.
Gotta take them down. Gotta take them down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
one day we'll win a Super Bowl.
One day, you know. Not in the nowadays.
Nope. So, you know, I'm rooting for that. I have to put a little asterisk now there, especially since I follow football a lot closer than I used to. I cannot wholeheartedly embrace Green Bay as my second team because they are in the NFC with my main team.
Yep.
But they are much like I hope the Nats don't do poorly. I usually hope Green Bay doesn't do poorly.
Yeah.
And when it comes to playoff time, when we're not in the playoffs and they are, I root for them. When we're in the playoffs, I root that we see them because those games are always excellent.
Yeah.
And also, we've won them all. So I'll take an entertaining, really well-played game that ultimately results in my team winning any day of the week.
Always.
That's what sports is. That's what sports is all about.
Exactly.
Entertainment and championships, which we don't have in the Super Bowl era, but we have entertainment sometimes. All right. Well, that's been it for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can find us on YouTube, which is where this video will be posted.
Yep.
And you can like, comment, and subscribe.
Like that button.
Yeah, smash the like button, as they say. Ring the bell for notifications. Do all the stuff, all the YouTube stuff. Do all of it. You can find me. I've been Green. You can find me at Tastefully Nerd on Twitter.
And I've been Gonzo. You can find me on Twitter at They Call Me Malu, MALUU.
You can follow the show on Facebook at Tastefully Nerd. And that's all for tonight, guys.
Game off.